Welcome back to another edition of the Founder Spotlight. Today, I have the founder of Cali Sober. Welcome, Flip. How are you doing today?
What's up? I'm great. How about you, Lars?
I am doing very well.
Sweet.
Thank you for joining me. So, Cali Sober offers obviously a unique take on sobriety with THC-infused mocktails. So what was that pivotal moment that led you to not only explore this niche, but ultimately launch Cali Sober?
Yeah. Well, I always tell it like in kind of two ways, right? One, I was in the hemp industry before, so I've been in this industry since, since they signed the Farm Bill in 2018. So I launched an agency that was ad agency that was focused on cannabis and hemp,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there I kind of parlayed that into a gummy company called Goodkind, which is actually still running today. So I've been in the business for a while. As I was in the industry, this was about 2 years ago, I saw that water-soluble hemp-derived Delta 9 was starting to become available. And so I really had that thought like, oh shit, here come the drinks, like that's really what kind of, sparked in my head. Because, in the cannabis industry, I think that we've always thought like the drinks were going to come in and take over alcohol, right? Like, I think, that thought has been in it. But as we've seen the drinks kind of perform in the dispensaries and the rec states, they've, grown to only be like 1% of all sales or whatever, like a really small part of the cannabis industry. And I always thought that was because, really wasn't for general market. The stoners that are going into dispensaries, aren't really looking for low dose cannabis products like the beverages kind of offer. So I kind of thought, okay, well, here could be the general market play, right? So that was from the kind of business side. And then kind of the personal side of it is that I went sober from alcohol around that time. Actually, this month, in 11 days, I don't know when this is airing or whatever, but let's say this month, October, is my 2-year anniversary of being sober from alcohol. So I was already in the market, kind of, reconsidering my relationship with alcohol, kind of figuring out all of that stuff. But I was in the market looking for alternatives, right? So I was getting into NA beers and I was getting into functional beverages and all that stuff. And then, just as a consumer, I kind of realized like, these are great, but they're just not doing what I really need them, what I really wanted them to do, like, and I still like all those alternatives as well as like a treat or as something that I can, drink whenever, I'm kind of in the mood for it. But, that thing that I really used alcohol for, that a lot of people use alcohol for, take the edge off, get a little bit more relaxation, what I thought of like trying to get better sleep, things like that. Having a drink in my hand, socially with friends, it really didn't do the same thing. And then, I kind of thought, well, it was kind of two and two. Like, my cannabis use kind of helped me quit alcohol. And so I thought, okay, well, if we can get THC into the drink, maybe that can kind of deliver something that is a better alternative and a better option for people who are kind of seeking to reconsider their relationship with alcohol. So kind of those two things, the business side and kind of the personal side. That's how kind of Cali Sober was born.
Yeah, that's it's a story that I think is pretty common in
Mm-hmm.
these circles. Myself, when I started consuming these drinks, the hemp derived ones, I really only knew about Can and Wink at the time because I was familiar with them both from a rec
Yeah.
standpoint. And so, I was drinking those. I had a few of them, and I had already kind of started to cut back on my intake of alcohol by just mixing in like an NA beer in between regular beers. And so then I had those, and I had quite a few, and it had been like 2.5 months, almost 3 months that I had no alcohol because I don't like to combine the two. And I sat there and I realized I was like, why would I ever go back to alcohol?
Yeah.
It's not that I have anything against alcohol. I've had sips of my wife's drinks. I've had a glass of champagne here or there. But I was like, man, I don't really miss it at all.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even notice it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Uh,
Really
cl-
scratching the itch. Yeah, totally.
so, that's a very common thing. I wanted to shift gears here and to kind of talk about your background a bit. You
For
mentioned
sure.
to me a little bit offline, but you've worked with major brands like AB InBev and ESPN. How did those experiences shape your approach to creating and then obviously marketing Cali Sober?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's shaped it I mean, it's the only expertise I actually I actually own, which is kind of funny. So yeah, so I started an ad agency here in Dallas in 2010. Before that, I was kind of freelancing. I kind of found myself in kind of the art director kind of role. My background is really funny because I was a theater major in undergrad in college. And then I got a master's. My grad degree is in theology. So, as you can tell, I was really just searching, just trying to figure out, like, what am I supposed to do in this world? And I never thought of business or entrepreneurship really as an option. I just knew that I didn't want to have a normal job, right? I knew that I was kind of born with that kind of rebellion. And so yeah, I was actually working as a campus minister at SMU, which is, where I did my undergrad at here in Dallas. And I made a deal with my director at the time. He was like, hey, well, we got to do some marketing because, no one knows about us on campus. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, if you get me Creative Suite, Adobe Creative Suite, I'll learn it and I'll learn market and I'll do the marketing. And so, from that was great. Like I started doing work for, basically marketing for my, campus church. Then I started working for the other campus ministries on campus. And then I started picking up clients of like our board members and stuff of their businesses. And so pretty quickly, I kind of, it's not hard to make more money doing anything than church work. So, my freelance income started, vastly, elephanting my church income. And so I started freelancing, kind of designing. I had never taken an advertising class or a design class in my entire life. I was just kind of going with my gut there. But what I did find out is that, there was some savviness and there was some like real kind of world learnings from this kind of entrepreneurial role. So I started an agency and I grew that agency really from my freelance to, at one point, 60-person agency. We're at like 20 million revenue. Large client, a large client, like you say, was Anheuser-Busch InBev. And we did like all regional marketing, 5 of their 7 regions on their core business: Budweiser, Bud Light, Michelob, Stella Artois. And then, we did a lot of their kind of go-to-market strategy and execution for product ascension lines, new acquisitions, new brands that they just like thought up of. And then, they closed 3-6 months later. So that's really where I cut my teeth on beverage marketing and, large brands, like you said, ESPN, Caesars Entertainment, Pizza Hut was a big client. So I kind of got to know the advertising world pretty well. And then myself as an entrepreneur and as a founder of that. So yeah, that's really, like I said, that's really my only expertise. Like I know about branding. I know about marketing. I know a lot about beverage marketing. I know a lot about, bringing these kind of beverages to market or bringing beverages to market. But, what I don't know is, operating a beverage company and kind of learning all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Man, the funny thing is like, and this is my 5th company. So I guess, some people call me like a serial entrepreneur by this point, but, in every new business that I have, there's a pretty much, there's a lot of the deep end. Right.
Yep.
That's really what keeps me really going. There's a lot, like I like to put myself in situations and start businesses where I've got a good idea, but then there's enough of it that I have to really learn kind of on the fly. And that's really where I feel like, my strengths and my values lie. So here it was like building the beverage brand, and operating the beverage brand. And it's so funny. I literally called up a high school friend who I just heard was making kombuchas out in California. Yeah. And I called him up and I said, hey, can you make a THC drink? And he was like, sure, I guess. And I was like, cool. He sent me like a list of flavors. He's like, what flavor do you want? And I was like, I don't know, strawberry, ginger, and hibiscus. That sounds good, I guess. Have no idea.
Yeah.
And literally the process was like, okay, cool. I'm going to make this drink and then I'm going to send it to you in 4 weeks. And like, 4 weeks later, I got 2 pallets of product just like shipped to my house, to my garage. And I was like, cool. What do I do with this?
Now what?
Now what? So I ended up selling that entire 2 pallets of product, which is great. But it was a terrible product. I mean, it tasted terrible. It performed really, really poorly. There was a lot of like, second fermentation and stuff happening to it. Yeah, it was a good failure. It was a good mistake that I really learned from. And then I kind of took it from there and then kind of realized, okay, and then I kind of figured out, I knew what to not do. Well,
Yeah.
and then it was like, well, what do I really need to do? And so I started asking around, getting kind of better partners and stuff in, and then that's where kind of the building blocks of starting, Cali Sober was, which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, a few follow-up questions here. You,
Sure.
you mentioned that you started doing all the design, like learned
Yeah.
Creative Suite on the fly. So, are you still handling all the design work for Cali Sober?
No, I am. I mean, I do some of it.
Mm-hmm.
I can do like extensions of things, but the original design. So I'm basically like working in a CMO role
Okay.
at Cali Sober, right? Where I'm like kind of overseeing, I've got a creative director and I've got, a designer that I've worked with for, years now, kind of on the stuff. So, once the design and stuff is kind of set, I'm able to, play it around and, build shelf talkers and build little postcards and, little collateral and stuff. But, you don't want me at the front end of that stuff. That's not really where my value lies.
Well, what I will say is that I'm going to advocate that your designer gets a raise.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah, because the work and everything
Thanks, man.
is beautiful. So,
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a funny story. I've worked with this guy named Amadeus, and he actually runs an agency out of Sweden. And when I was in my agency days, I did all of recruitment for our agency, and it was like one summer where we started doing a lot more remote work and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go on a hunt. I'm gonna find the best designers in the world. Like I'm seriously just gonna go out and look at every portfolio and really find, some really great talent out there. And so I found Amadeus. I mean, that was like probably like 10 years ago now. And on every single one of my personal projects he's worked on, I've worked with him on everything. And I pitched him this idea of Cali Sober. And, I kind of made, mood boards and kind of guidelines and stuff of what I wanted to, kind of feel and evoke this kind of ideas of this like early 90s kind of nostalgia. So I gave him like, pictures of like, I didn't know, he didn't know much of the American culture stuff. So I was like trying to explain to him what Saved by the Bell was.
I was going to say, it was Saved by the Bell on the mood board.
Yeah, and then like even the deeper cuts like Beavis and Butthead and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and like all of these kind of like little key points, I think, in early 90s culture that I really wanted to kind of harken back to. And, it's so funny, man. He first sent me off. He's a hand letter artist, right? So he sent me off his first sketch of Cali Sober. And I was like, I don't get it, but I believe that this is going to be cool. But right now, I don't think it's that cool, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, no, just trust me. Like, this is just a little sketch. Let me, kind of flesh it out. So he kind of did that iteration process, and then we got to the logo, and I was like, shit, you're right. Like, this is amazing, right? And then kind of the same thing happened with the cans. When he was first doing the first can, it was just like, just wasn't there yet. And it was really hard. I'm like a terrible client, right? Because I'm like, I just don't know. It's not really there yet. I'll know it when I see it kind of thing. And then he was like, all right, cool. Like, give me a week and let me really just like, go through my process and pitch you something at the end of the week. So I did, and he did. And man, when he pitched, he just showed me the first image of the can. I was just like, shit, like, and honestly, I mean, I've seen a lot of creative, right? And I've seen a lot of executions on, CPG as well. And I'll tell you, man, it's very rare you get those first looks and you kind of have that initial feeling of like, wow, like we've uncovered something really special here. And it was just, it's just amazing to have it on your own brand, right? Like,
yes.
So yeah, man, that it was literally the first thing. I mean, it wasn't the first iteration, obviously, but it was the first iteration of this can, and I was just like blown away. I was like, oh, wow, this has legs. We definitely can go somewhere with that. And then yeah, we hit the ground running, and I was like, man, that's it. There's not much tweaks we got to do. Let's just keep going, and let's see what this looks like. It started with the can. And then, let's see really what it executes out to the packaging and to the website and to, all of the different, components, social and video and all of that stuff. And I'm really, really happy of how it's kind of, it's still playing out,
Yeah. So had a post on LinkedIn recently
Yeah,
around the term Cali Sober.
sure.
I believe you commented on it as well as I think your CRO,
Yeah, Michael, that's the primary.
Michael.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also,
So
former college roommate.
oh,
So
there you go,
you're
keeping
a
it in the
college
family.
roommate. Now we're back here building a business together. It's funny.
Yeah. So, the concept of being Cali sober, obviously, that generated a lot of conversation on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But how do you, envision this lifestyle evolving? And do you see the term staying around? And then ultimately, what do you see Cali Sober, the brand's role in that traction?
Yeah, so I want to tell the story of how the name came about.
Hmm.
Obviously, like we didn't invent the name, but I was getting drinks, and when I say getting drinks, like I was drinking NA beer, and my friend
Hmm.
was my neighbor, who is now my trademark lawyer and an investor in the company
I'm
because of
sensing
this
it. I'm sensing.
conversation. Right, yeah, totally. So we were hanging out, just kind of catching up, and he was like, "What are you working on?" I was like, "Oh man, I've got this idea, this beverage, THC beverage, all this stuff." And he was like, "Well, what are you gonna call it?" And I was like, at that point, I was just kind of like, really just like spitballing names. And and I said, it'd be cool to like call it something like Cali Sober, and really attach it to kind of this lifestyle because, I've become Cali Sober and, I'm really kind of deep in it. And like, my story, which I can kind of talk about later, but my story of like finding sobriety and not knowing what to do. And I got into AA, which I loved. I loved AA. I loved alcoholics. I loved the big book. I found, I loved the 12 steps and I loved all of that stuff. But a thing that I found out in that journey was that I wasn't actually an alcoholic, right? I had different reasons why I was sitting in the chairs, but then, it my viewpoints on sobriety was very different than the kind of the teetotalers kind of view in AA,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It was just different. So I was like, man, I found this thing, this Cali Sober thing. I really attached to it, and I'm like, I really like this. I really like the lifestyle for me, And I was like, okay, maybe other people around it. It'd be cool to create a beverage around the movement. Anyways, but then I was like, but, for all the reasons, I'm not from California. I'm going to be a freaking poser if I do that. It's like, is that even cool? I don't even know if like people think, people are definitely going to say like, oh, that name is dumb or whatever. And then I was like, well, it's probably taken, right? It's not like that's a great idea, but it's not like I'm not going to be the first person who thought of it, right?
Right.
So anyway, through all this stuff, as I'm like just talking, he pulls out his phone and he looks it up and he's like, "Hey, dude, this trademark lapsed 3 weeks ago. Do you want me to try to apply for it?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why not? See what happens." And then he called me literally 4 weeks later and was like, "Okay, so I have the provisional trademark for Cali Sober for beverages and apparel. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And then that's actually, that's how the brand got named. I wish it was like sexier and more innovative, but I just thought, if I have the opportunity and I've got this trademark, let's kind of run with it. So that's kind of how it was born. And then, how it's kind of played out. My intuition was right. I get asked all the time, "Are you from California?" I'm like, "No, I'm not from California. My family's from California, but let me tell you about the Cali Sober lifestyle." And I get to a lot of people. I think a lot of people in the industry, right? Like
Hmm.
you and I, we've been hearing this term for a while, right?
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, it's almost even like not even trendy anymore. Right? You don't know what you don't know. Inside the bubble, right? You think a
Yeah.
lot of things, but as you're out in general market, a lot of people don't know what this term is. They think it sounds cool, but
Hmm.
they're like, what does that mean? And so it's really great because it allows me to really have that conversation point with people about the lifestyle and about the movement and about, hey, there's another way to look at sobriety besides, the binary way of, not drinking, either not doing anything or, drinking your ass off. I feel like that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And so it really opens up a lot of doors, I feel, into the conversations. And then I get to kind of talk a little bit more about the mission of what we're trying to do as opposed to, the education of like what's in the drink and what's THC and how much 5 milligrams will affect you and all of that stuff. And I think we get there, but it's so much more beneficial when I'm talking to a consumer about the mission and the reason why and the brand really, besides, as opposed to just trying to educate them on the product.
Yeah, so kind of like sticking with the consumers there, what's been some of the most like surprising consumer reactions or feedback you've received since launching Cali Sober? And, has any of that feedback influenced your overall business strategy at all?
Oh my God, yeah. So we do a lot of, since especially we're in Texas, it's pretty unregulated, and a lot of the places that we have kind of boots on the ground, it's in those kind of more unregulated kind of states. So a part of our strategy is we do a lot of like urban markets, right? So they're like farmers markets, but like not like selling meat and cheeses and stuff. It's like, think of more like vintage clothing and local shops and stuff like that. So like literally every weekend in Dallas, Austin, Houston, Nashville, and Charlotte, and in Atlanta are we pitch a tent and pull up a pop-up table, and we're selling Cali Sober over the table to random general market people who are just like passing by. So we're able to sample them, and it's cool because I do most of the markets here in Dallas, and it is just, I mean, it's amazing how much feedback we get. Obviously, like I'm able to hear it, and all consumer feedback helped me in leading the brand and building the business. A few surprising things. I think there's two most surprising things that I've found in doing that. One is trial for this category is so high. So many people are interested in something like this. They're so willing to try it. I think we kind of focus more, our target demo is more Gen Z, but I see millennials, I see Gen X, I see boomers, really interested in this product as well, in this category, and they're willing to try it, right? And it doesn't take a lot of convincing to do, which I'm super surprised. I thought there was going to be this high level of not just education, because I think there's a great deal of that obviously has to come with the products, but just hey, one of my opening lines is, hey, you want to drink some weed? And most people are like, sure, like, let's go. I'm interested in this. Like, or like, what do you mean it's a mocktail with THC in it? Like people are really interested in it. So I think that's super surprising. It's at the trial so high. And this is what I'm surprised by. People's tastes, people's palates, because it is all up and down, bro. Like I have had people say, this is the most delicious thing I've ever tasted. I would drink this without the THC in it. My gosh, this is, wonderful. And then I've had people say, this is disgusting. Like, I hate this taste. This is not for me, blah, blah, blah. And like, there's sometimes there are cultural components to it. Sometimes, it's location and kind of where we're sampling. But honestly, it's all up and down. So it just goes to show you that a lot of people are like, well, especially like distributors or retailers are like, oh, we got to taste it to make sure it tastes good. But like, honestly, it's really just their taste, they're, yeah. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of brands that'll say, oh, we're the best tasting on the market. And that's great. Maybe they are for some people, but I think that's super variable, And I think the cool thing is, there's a lot of brands here. Like we're in Total Wine and More, and they've got like 165 different SKUs, on the shelf. And so there's a lot of options for people to try. And so I think that's a benefit, to the category and not a deterrent. Honestly, I think it's awesome that people's tastes are weird, because we all can make different tastes and different flavor profiles and really find our consumer base.
Yeah, absolutely. And my final question here, I like to ask all my founders, besides Cali Sober, what other brands do you enjoy, that inspire you, or that you consume?
That's hard. That's a hard question, Lars, because I love everyone else, right? I mean, that's just I guess that's a part of just my personality, especially in this category. We're all startups, right? And so there's something that I've connected with a lot of the founders that you've had on your show, right? I've connected with a lot of them. And so when I look at these products on the shelf, I don't think about the product, and I don't think about them as competitors. I think of their names, right? And I think of them. And I'm really, really happy for them, genuinely. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what I can say. I can say that I guess I love Can from a brand standpoint and from a pioneer standpoint. I think they've really gone, obviously they paved the way for beverages like this, and they've spent a lot of money in, really building out the market and really paving the way. And so, I think my hat's off definitely to them, and obviously their product is great. I love Plift, actually. Todd is a homie, and I love his point of view and the way that he is running his brand and the belief systems behind it. And, that shit tastes great. I love Aaron and Breeze. I know Aaron from my agency days, and so it's funny when he launched Breeze and I launched Cali Sober, we called each other up and I was like, "You're doing a drink too?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude." He's like, "Oh shit," and just his ability to really direct it from a digital marketing and digital media play is phenomenal, right? And I love his transparency and his participation in the market. I love Cycling Frog. I love Uncle Art. He is amazing. Like, that dude is probably the nicest guy I've ever met my entire life. And there's not a question that he won't answer honestly and transparently from a business side. And it's phenomenal. So I guess those are all my top brands. I guess I got to give a shout out to Aaron Owens and Tejas Tonic because they're like kind of the local homies. I think TBD is doing a great job too. I don't know those guys specifically, but I think their brand tastes really, their drinks taste really great. And, we're on shelves a lot, against them. And I think they're doing a great job just in the market, kind of pushing their stuff. Yeah, I don't know. That's a long list, but they're all the homies, like I said. I'm friends with the CMO of Wink too, and Lee is killing it. So, or she's chief of sales and she's killing it. So everyone, man, I don't think you can go wrong, honestly, in this category, to be honest. So
That is fair. You named
spread the love as much as I can, dude.
definitely.
Is there any that I missed out on, like that I think I guarantee you, if someone watches this, they're gonna be like, "Dude, where was my shout out?" And I'm like, thinking on the fly, bro. I'm sorry, but
It's always such a hard question. Or like if I ever make a post trying to like talk about a bunch of different people, I always end up forgetting someone that as well. I like Nowadays a lot.
great.
Yeah.
Fucking Nowadays. Hats off to their social media and the fact, and their ability to like really hit that virality before we all started getting shut down social,
Yeah.
like, there's like, I love, yeah, there's a story to tell with every brand. Obviously, this is why you're doing the show. But yeah, man, we're all doing great things. And I just want us to all continue to do great things.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Flip. And I don't even think we got to half the questions here. So I'll have to have you back on and we'll do another one.
I got a problem talking though, so I'd love to be on again and answer any deep dark secrets you'd like me to reveal. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Well, until next time, guys, cheers.
All right, man. Later.